Hi, today I'm going to walk you through the Art of Lab Work Pipetting Skills Development Lab for the middle school section of provided by the Kansas Corn STEM. My name is Brent Connor. I'm a lead teacher for the Kansas Corn STEM. Today I'm going to walk you through the Art of Lab Work Pipetting Skills Development for the middle school provided by the Kansas Corn STEM. Purpose of this activity is to provide your middle school students with developmental tools that they can use throughout their lab work and introduce them to new techniques and instruments that they may not have access to. The materials that we need are very simple. That's why I like this lab for middle school. You need 4 cups with tap water, some food dye, you need your micropipette, your micropipetting tips, grid paper so that they can do their lab work on, and then their mystery worksheet tool for the discussion piece. I always open this up with a discussion for the class just to kind of see what kind of discussions they would have. So that was when you would need your mystery pipetting worksheet. The things that we talk about, we ask them what the purpose of this instrument is, kind of see what their thoughts are before the lab, where they might find that equipment, because most of them probably have never seen that piece of equipment. What are some of the major features we can use as clues, and how would they operate this equipment? So I've done this multiple ways in my classroom. We'll kind of have them fill that out in teamwork as teams, and maybe they put that on a whiteboard, and then we'll go around and let each team share that for each one of those and before we start our discussion. And then we'll go in to actually introduce that, and when we'll actually tell them that this is a pipette. So the micropipette, it measures, it's used in labs around the world, measures very small amounts of liquid. So these were in microliters, because we kind of introduce what a microliter is compared to a milliliter. Kind of walk through the dials, and we'll kind of introduce that here as we get into the purpose or the use of it. And we just let them know that there's many ranges that they can use within the pipette. So obviously we have to go in on how to use it. So the 4 steps that we'll talk about today, how to load a tip onto your pipette, the different stops, a soft stop versus a hard stop, how to draw up a sample, and then how to expel that sample. The first step is on how to load the tip. So we always teach them how to hold the micropipette. So this is our little thumb clip here. So that goes, that's your finger clip. So your thumb will be used to actually push the dials. So our tip on the end, and we have our micropipette tips here. And all you do is you just line that up, just push down and pull straight out. And this is the point where we start talking about contamination. So when they use these in labs, it's usually a very non-contaminated lab. So once they draw up the tip, we talk about every time they touch the tip, they'd have to get a new tip. So we talk about how to take away contamination on that. So that's how you would draw up the tip to get ready for that. Soft versus hard stop, so we talk about that. So up here is your plunger. There are 2 different stops. If you press down, you'll feel a little catch on that, so that is your soft stop. And then to get to the hard stop, you just push that down even farther until it actually stops all the way. So soft stop versus a hard stop on your pipette. To draw up a sample, and that's where those 2 stops come into play. So in order to draw up the sample, you only want to do the soft stop. So you'll plunge down to the soft stop. You just put your tip into what liquid you want and release, and it'll draw up whatever amount that you have. And we'll talk about the amount here. The amount doesn't really make a difference for the first couple, just for them to practice on that. And then when they expel their liquid, they'll just go over the top of their paper, and then they want to go to the hard stop and they'll expel the rest of their liquid out. If they just go to the soft stop, there'll still be a bunch of liquid in the tip. So they want to make sure they go all the way to the hard stop for that. So that is expelling their sample. And I would just have them practice that 2 or 3 times to kind of get used to doing that, and then they can wipe off their sheet and start over. So we have 2 different activities that we do with this lab. The first one is we just practice our samples, so and then we practice expelling those. So we're going to talk about setting our pipette. So there's 3 levels that we're going to do. We're going to do a 10 microliter, 20 microliter, and a 30 microliter. And so the way you do that is on your window here. There's black dials, which are down here, or you can use your plunger as a dial as well. But the black dials go a little faster. So you just turn that until you get down to your 10 microliters. And so on the 10, it'll say 0, 1, 0, and now we're at 10 microliters. So we're just going to draw up a sample, go to our soft stop, pull up our sample, and put that down on the paper. Okay? And then what we'll do is we'll repeat that, but now we're going to go up to 20 microliters. So now we're going to turn that up to 20. And so it'll say 0, 2, 0, and we're going to repeat the process. Soft stop, pull up your liquid, and we're going to put that right beside it. Okay? And then we're going to go to a 30. So again, we're going to turn our dial until we hit 0, 3, 0. And we're going to repeat the same thing. Soft stop, pull up, and then our hard stop. And I kind of already put those together. So step 2 of this would now be to test your accuracy. And we're going to try to combine these. And usually if you just take your tip and drag these over, we can kind of combine those into a big blob. Okay. And so if they were accurate and to test their abilities, now what we do is now we just add those up. So we had a 10, a 20, and a 30. And so we're going to set this to a 60 microliter because that's how much total we should have on there. And now we're going to see if we can draw that whole sample up without leaving any. So again, now we go to our soft stop. And this one, you got to make sure that we're not touching the bottom of the paper or it's not going to draw all the way up. And you see you're pretty successful there. So if they go and they're touching the paper, they'll have a lot more than that. I still have just a little bit there, but for the most part, that's kind of a good test for them, and they can play around with that all they want because it's just wipes off and there's no residue on that. So that would be the first activity, and they can play around with that as much as you want them to. And they can challenge themselves. They can, set this to whatever they want. Whatever levels they want. So try to draw those joined samples together. And then the second activity that we like to do, this kind of gives them the creativity. So it's kind of hard to tell on the videos, but this paper is a grid paper. It's just regular graph paper. I put it into a sheet protector because, it wipes up nice and easy. So you can clean them. You don't have to waste paper on that. And so what you do is you challenge your kids to now use their artwork ability. So use their creativity. You can actually create have a picture for them, so it can be differentiated a little bit, so you can challenge your upper level kids to create their own. You can actually do a graph paper that has different colors on it, so that for your lower level kids, your SPED kids, they can actually be successful because they can just trace whatever drawing that you have. Obviously for our seed to stem Kansas corn workshops, we always try to do something obviously with corn, so a lot of them try to draw a corn stalk on that. So but that activity kind of does creativity, and there's an example on the PowerPoint of one of them that were done. They did a little flower, and they can use all 4 colors on that. One thing that I do tell them and not necessarily for the in class because we're not worried about contamination, but every time they do a sample, they should be expelling their tip. So at the end, we do expel the tip. I usually just have the bucket in the middle and then this white thing in front of the plunger. This is your basically expeller. So you take it and you just pop it off and it expels the liquid, or that expels the tip back into the bucket. And then when they get another one, again, they just push straight down and pull that up. And, but for our activities, we just let them kind of mix and go through that just because we're not worried about contamination at that point. So that concludes the Art of Lab Work Pipetting Skills Development Lab. To see more labs, you can visit kansascornstem.com.